other things that began to tie in with it.
The tie-in came on June 3rd, 1978, when a UFO was sighted over Taos, New Mexico. As it hovered over the town, it dropped a thin film of ashes onto the ground below. The ashes contained high levels of magnesium and potassium, the same elements found on the cattle under ultraviolet light, but there was more.
We find there's at least 25 elements in there. There's a good possibility that it may be something that's organic. And if it is, this just opens up a real bag of worms, because anything can happen if this is an organic material that has come from one of these crafts. And this, as the people told us, directly fell from the craft that was hovering over the area.
One day in 1975, Logan County Sheriff Tex Graves took his deputies into the countryside around Sterling, Colorado, determined to track the bright lights which had been skimming across the ranches and farmlands for the last several weeks. Reporter Bill Jackson describes the sequence of events.
We were just getting started in this. We really didn't know what we were doing. We weren't prepared for anything like this, of course. But as time went on, we realized we couldn't catch them, so maybe we can take pictures of them and discover something that way. A year and a half later, the lights returned. The mutilations were still going on. So we arranged with the Honeywell people in Denver to borrow a 1100 millimeter Lentar lens from them. And got some high-speed recording film from Kodak. And then we sat and we waited, hoping that the lights would come back and we'd have a chance, and finally that chance came. It was a stationary object that we saw for approximately 30 to 45 minutes, and the resulting shots were interesting, to say the least. Shortly after these final exposures, the object just disappeared. It was almost like somebody hit a light switch and it was there no longer.
What are these unidentifiable lights? What is their nature and their purpose? Why have they appeared in the night skies immediately prior to the discovery of mutilated cattle? And how many more animals will die before the mystery is solved? In 1974, I received a call from a woman who had a strange story to tell. One night, as she and 3 friends were returning to Los Angeles from Lompoc, California, they encountered an unidentified light in the sky. Thinking at first it was a helicopter, the friends paid little attention. When the object began to fly in unusual patterns at extremely high speeds, the passengers soon realized they were dealing with something out of the ordinary. What happened next is best told in the woman's own words. Helen is a fictional name. Her real name is being withheld at her own request.
I saw it come into the sky from the top of the mountain range and go straight up and do a 90-degree angle toward us, and I called it to the attention of Don, John, and Sue. And they saw it too, and it was there. I was not on dope or alcohol or anything like that. And it started doing really erratic things in the sky. It was a small white light and very easy to see. We were not mistaking anything. It came over to the car, flipped over and went around on the other side toward the other hills and came back, settled above the car. By this time, because it was so close, it was 8 lanes of freeway, at least in diameter and even a little wider, saucer-shaped, a very white, luminescent light emitted from the entirety of it. The ship stayed above us, out in front of us, about a minute or 2, and we watched it, and none of us were saying a thing. And we just kept driving, and it kept staying in front of us. And then out of the perimeter of it, closest to us, came 4 white beams of light, very much like funnel-shaped, smaller at the perimeter, and they descended upon us and came around each one of our bodies. And out of each one of our bodies, we started to float into that beam of light. The best description would be molecularly being dispersed. And when I looked over at Don and Sue and John, their bodies, their legs and their bottoms are still on the car seat, and their heads and their shoulders and their chest molecules were going through the roof of the car, along with mine. We didn't lose consciousness while this happened. We were completely conscious of going through the roof. And the bottom molecules of our body were coming through too, and we were about 3.5 or 4 feet outside the car, going toward the ship, and we hit an energy field, a strong one, and remembered nothing. Next thing I did remember, we were coming back, the same process, going back into the car.
It wasn't until several years later that Helen realized she had experienced more than she remembered. Mental images, which she couldn't explain, caused her to visit a specialist who put her through a memory regression. In this relaxed state, Helen recalled the evening in question and described in detail the experience of being taken aboard the UFO.
I came to, and standing in front of me was a very tall man with whitish hair, kind of bronze, beautifully tan type of skin. And he had a long type of robish gown on, and he was looking at me, and very, very friendly. And he said he supposed I'd like to know what we were doing here. And I looked around, and I did want to know. There was a huge room that we were in that had a hallway off the front and a hallway off to the side. And they were round, curved hallways. The room was very light. Iridescent light radiated all over, but you didn't see a light bulb anywhere. In fact, you didn't see hardly anything except for the swivel chairs we were sitting in. And he proceeded to help me up, and when we walked together over to the screen in front of us, across the room, and he showed us some information and pictures, and it was very cordial and very easy to talk with. The man spoke to me in English, but concurrent with everything he said was a great deal of telepathic communication, and it was completely peaceful feeling. It all made sense. He showed us a screen with many images on it that clarified some of the things he was saying. He also said that he'd been around with the other people there for thousands of years, and that they had been picking up people and giving information to people for the use of putting it into this world, into this society, to bring about a lot of better changes. And the interesting thing was that there are some people, he indicated, who we know and read about, who were given information by him. This is what he told me. And there was no fear. That's predominant, I think, in everything. From this large room where we first came on, the man led me down into a couple other rooms. And the one that's very interesting was more or less in the center of this ship, and it was a room full of dials and full of men dressed in more form-fitting clothes, whereas the one who met me had a type of ambassadorial robes on. And these guys had more like turtlenecks and Levi's. They were still white, soft, iridescent, and very comfortable looking, and they were working. There was plenty of dials, and there was lots of screens, types of scopes there, and they were doing things very involved. None of them paid any attention to us. They kept their work. After he had taken me to these rooms, we were walking again down the hall to go back to the car. And while we were walking, I remember telling him, you know, nobody's going to believe me. And he said, he's a really nice doctor, and he goes, it doesn't matter if anybody believes you. And there was a purpose to being told these things, and what I'd learned and what John and Sue had learned too had its purpose. And it was very kind and very cordial. You could meet him on the street almost and not even feel anything unusual. And then we came back to the room, and we were put back in the car the same way as we were taken out. And just this tremendous sense of peace, and that there was a lot more going on than we had originally thought.
In December of 1969, amidst great public controversy, the Condon report from the University of Colorado was finally out. In summary, they found no evidence that UFOs were a threat to the national security, and the late Dr. Condon recommended that the Air Force terminate its involvement in UFO investigations and analysis. In 1969, the Air Force officially disbanded Project Blue Book and the study of the UFO phenomenon.
conclusions of Project Blue Book were: 1, no UFO reported, investigated, and evaluated by the Air Force has ever given any indication of threat to our national security. 2, there is no evidence submitted that sightings categorized as unidentified represent technological developments or principles beyond the range of present-day scientific knowledge. And 3, there is no evidence indicating that these unidentified objects are extraterrestrial.
The files of over 12,000 cases were placed into storage. But the ubiquitous UFO wasn't to be influenced by this government position. Incidents were to continue, with daily reports of flying objects finding their way into the news media. In the closing months of 1973 and early into 1974 alone, there are over 1,000 unrelated and unsolved reports of UFOs from across the United States.
Delaware State News, Dover, Delaware, October the 16th, 1973. Dover. 3 women on their way to the market saw it. At the same time, the crew of the Delaware State Police helicopter saw it. 2 airline pilots flying over Dover reportedly saw it. Flight controllers at the Dover Air Force Base saw it.
Southern Illinois and Carbondale, Illinois, October 18th, 1973. It didn't make any noise, Don said. It had red and green flashing lights on the front and back.
Times Dispatch, Richmond, Virginia, October the 19th, 1973. It was hovering, and we parked there on U.S. Route 15 about 2 hours and watched it.
Walla Walla, Washington, January 30th, 1974. Guards of the Washington State Penitentiary have spotted what appears to be the same UFO 2 mornings in a row from their tower positions at the prison.
Scranton Tribune, Scranton, Pennsylvania, February the 25th, 1974. Police spot flying object.
State's UFO reports are increasing.
October 21st, 1978. Bass Strait, Tasmania. A pilot named Frederick Valentich disappears after reporting a strange craft hovering above him. December 12, 1978, La Chapelle, France. A 45-year-old worker riding home observes an oval object. Together with another witness, he sees a craft hover above them. December 12, 1978, Guadalajara, Mexico. 2 luminous saucer-shaped objects are reported by residents, then by a police officer. December 16, 1978, Palermo, Italy. A bank clerk spots a disc of light and alerts the police, who take several photographs. January 2nd, 1979, Wellington, New Zealand. A veteran pilot and a newsman film 7 objects. January 4th, 1979, Jerusalem. Police on duty see 3 mysterious objects at high altitude. January 5th, 1979, Johannesburg, South Africa. A woman and her son report seeing half a dozen occupants in front of a brightly colored craft on a lonely country road. Ordinary people are seeing something all over the globe. But what have the experts seen? NORAD and the Air Force do have extremely sophisticated equipment, and by use of the phased array radar facility, surveillance is maintained on objects in space. But the system is only designed to track things like rockets, satellites, and man-made debris, objects with specific trajectories and which hold an orbital or flight velocity of approximately 4.8 nautical miles per second. This system is designed to discriminate between objects in space. For example, it will ignore a meteor entering the Earth's atmosphere, but will quickly spot a satellite as it begins re-entry. Objects can also be photographed with incredible precision by the electro-optical surveillance system, and it's very good at its job. However, it's not designed to photograph everything, just specific items and particular missions. The sky is so vast, it is virtually impossible to wait for, track, and photograph all unidentified phenomena. There is just not sufficient time or budget. So it is not really accurate to say that our sophisticated equipment and personnel are able to identify and examine any and all UFOs. On the contrary, they are programmed to study man-built machines, and only that.
Among the many reports of UFOs in late 1973, one incident would stand out because of the credibility of the four witnesses. This is Major Coyne, Army helicopter pilot, his co-pilot, Lieutenant Arrigo Jetsi, Air Medic Sergeant Healy, and Robert Janicek. These men had just finished their annual flight physical early that day and were found fit and sound of mind. They would take off from Port Columbus Airport about 10:30 p.m. But what was about to follow, and the subsequent report they filed, would put to the test the credibility of these men.
Approximately 8 miles east of Mansfield, our crew chief, Sergeant Robert Janicek, observed a red light on the east horizon.
Did you gentlemen see the same red light?
Yes, I did.
Our helicopter was flying on a northerly heading. We were flying at an altitude of 2,500 feet. He indicated that the light seemed to be pacing the helicopter, moving along in a parallel direction with our aircraft.
Which direction from the helicopter was the object?
It was to our right, to the right side of the helicopter, and it was moving with us as we were heading north towards Cleveland. And at this time, he indicated that the light changed its direction, was coming directly at the helicopter at the same altitude. And as the helicopter was maintaining a speed of 90 knots, the object came at a terrific speed from the horizon. We estimated 15 miles. Visibility was reported 15 miles that night.
Did you gentlemen see the object at this time, after it had been pointed out by the sergeant?
No, not at that time. I was flying left seat or co-pilot, and visibility from that seat from an object approaching from the right is rather limited. So I was having a difficulty seeing the object. And it was for that reason that Major Coyne did take the aircraft or the controls from me.
I grabbed the controls from Lieutenant Jetsi because I thought it was going to hit us. I braced for impact. With that, I pushed the collective down to get the helicopter to start to descend. I then looked at the altimeter. It was showing 1,700 feet, and we were descending 1,000 feet a minute. The helicopter began to descend, and as this object came at the helicopter, it seemed to descend with the helicopter. When the helicopter went down, the object came down, but it still came directly at our broadside, as if to hit the helicopter from the right side.
Did anyone else see the object at this time?
Yes, I was watching it come on out of the east horizon. And the only thing I felt was when the skipper took over the controls and we started to auto-rotate down, and I'd never been involved in a mid-air collision, so I was just watching this thing come at us. It was at this time a light came, swung 90 degrees from the UFO towards the helicopter, and it came in through the front of the plexiglass, and the entire cabin inside turned green from the light. It was a pyramid-shaped type light that beamed down and came through the front of the helicopter.
How long was your aircraft bathed in this beam?
The light that came into the cockpit apparently lasted only for a few seconds, but it was enough time that I observed the red instrument panel lights utilized for night flying to be absorbed by the green light.
Was it possible for you to determine the outline of this object against the star background?
Yes, sir. It was a cigar-shaped object, like a symmetrical airfoil with the dome on it. It was a solid object. It was a metallic structure to it. And you could see lights reflecting off the structure, and you could not see any of the stars or behind the object itself.
Well, while all this was going on, what was the attitude of the helicopter?
Apparently, when we were supposed to be descending at 2,000 feet a minute at 100 knots, we were climbing at 1,000 feet a minute with the controls still established for a descent. And we went from 1,700 feet up to 3,500 feet and topped out at 3,800 feet. I would like to stress one important fact, and that is there is approximately 20 years of Army aviation experience between the 4 men on board the helicopter that night. We have been trained to follow procedures and regulations in reporting incidents, regardless of how they're accepted. And we try to follow those procedures. And we reported the incident as it occurred and have avoided any speculation on the subject.
While our government's official position is not to speculate on this subject, we can choose to let our minds explore other possibilities, to use our imaginations. For if we consider that astroscientists agree on one point, that the possibility of life elsewhere is not only quite probable, some feel it is there without a doubt. Let us suppose then that these objects are real space vehicles, extraterrestrial in origin, and not an illusion of the mind. Perhaps we can begin to accept such ideas as various reported UFO shapes and configurations by looking at our own aviation history. We have, in 71 years, devised dozens of aircraft shapes, from propeller-driven biplanes to lunar modules to date. And by projecting into the future, it's conceivable that our technology may lead us to similar developments. As to the UFO's behavior, if they are space vehicles, they appear to have movement in advance of our understanding of what is possible in the 20th century. But we must realize, however, it stretches our imagination. There will be a 21st and 22nd and 23rd century, where the impossibilities of today may be tomorrow's commonplace. If these vehicles are of origins outside our Earth, then we must assume they are managed, controlled, and operated by some sort of beings, perhaps similar to us. From sketchy reports around the world, we can begin to construct a hazy portrait of these aliens. Reports indicate ashen, pale, white skin, perhaps with a thin protective membrane over them. Eyes large, far apart, with a wraparound appearance. Nose indefinite, 2 small breathing holes. A slit mouth, or small, or no opening at all. Behavior, cautious, curious, firm. Ability to paralyze on touch. Sounds emitted. Humming. Oohs in a foreign language or some accent. Buzzing as if electronic from their head and chest. Wearing head protection or overall body protection.
We just might not be scientific and technically sophisticated to the extent that's necessary in order to recognize what is the real evidence in this, in what we have collected.
I think we should also think of other possible hypotheses. Suppose there are such things as interlocking universes, where forms of matter which don't mesh with ours except under strange conditions.
To assume that we're on the level of intelligence that would of necessity be visiting us, if they have the ability to come here, there may be no common bridge of understanding. There may be attempts at communication and we don't recognize it as communication.
We must always be aware of the fact that we may be testing the wrong hypothesis. As for instance, in the days when people talked about stones falling from heaven, that was testing the wrong hypothesis. Meteorites do exist, the phenomenon exists, but they're not stones that fall from heaven. They're stones that the Earth collides with when they're in orbit around the sun. It's arrogant, egocentric, egotistical for us to think that we are the highest intelligences in the universe. I think that's completely preposterous.
As far as the extraterrestrial intelligence is concerned, I believe it's out there.
We have not been able to come up with a logical explanation. At least our scientists have not. The only plausible explanation that would explain all of these sightings is the theory that these could be intelligently controlled vehicles controlled by an alien species, alien to this planet.
How would the public react if this event were true? To find the answer, Dr. Leon Festinger of the New School for Social Research consulted a number of prominent social psychologists from several universities across the United States.
You must realize that social scientists can only make educated guesses about reactions to such a new and startling event. But nevertheless, certain behavior can be predicted. Dr. Aronson of the University of Texas points out that many people already have strong beliefs about the existence or non-existence of extraterrestrial beings and are committed to these beliefs. Dr. Walser tells us that if these extraterrestrial beings were advanced beyond us, we would probably gain technological information from them, that many Americans may worry that their benefactor will demand something in return, constant gratitude or acknowledgement of their superiority. As far as panic is concerned, most of my associates agree that it wouldn't happen unless there were, one, an imminent danger with no escape or chance to protect oneself, and two, it resulted in loss of contact with family or primary groups. And last, there is also the question of longer-term effects. What would happen over many years? One social psychologist suggests that it might help to unite the world. If the visitors from space prove to be an enemy, he suggests, then we would unite as one species to drive the invader away and then to live in peace thereafter.
We've so far talked of the past and the present, but what are the possibilities of the future? It seems almost certain that if other beings more advanced than ourselves do inhabit other sectors of the universe, then it's quite probable there will come that day, that moment in time, when official contact will be made. Let's look at an incident that might happen in the future, or perhaps could have happened already. The premise is that contact is made by extraterrestrial beings with representatives of the United States Air Force at Phenomen Air Force Base in the deserts of New Mexico. The day is clear. It's about 5:32 a.m. at Phenomen Air Force Base. Traffic light. One recon plane is on the field ready for takeoff when Sergeant Mann is given a report of an approaching unidentified craft.
Yeah, Bill, no, nothing on the law.
I'll repeat it again. Unidentified approaching objects on coordinate 49er, 34 degrees southwest, following range and array.
Can I go northeast down with the Army helicopter?
Probably a stray civilian, maybe. Keep me informed.
I see him over there. Check with Edwards. Make contact with him, Bill.
This is Phenomen Air Force Base Control Tower. Identify yourself. What's your tail number? You're encroaching on military airspace. Warning, identify yourself. You're in a restricted military air corridor.
Call the base commander.
Base commander's office, Sergeant Whitmore speaking. Yes? Yes, hold on. Colonel, for you.
This is Colonel Horner, yes? Yes, an unidentified vehicle. You warned the aircraft again? 142, turn left. What's its shape? Check Edwards. Civilian patrol? Okay, all right. It's down to red alert.
Unidentified aircraft approaching.
Hey, Bill, give me a quick check with Wright Patterson Intelligence. There may be an experimental craft from somewhere, I don't know, here. Alert the fire chief and security and safety.
Interceptors are dispatched to escort the unidentified crafts out of the area. During a routine photographic mission, a tech sergeant and staff sergeant of the base photographic team were aboard a helicopter at the time and run off several feet of film of the three objects, one of which breaks away and begins a descent. A second high-speed camera crew on the ground runs off approximately 600 feet. The cameras continue to roll as the extraordinary vehicle comes into view. It hovers, almost silently, about 10 feet off the ground for nearly a minute and yaws like a ship at anchor, then sets down on 3 extension pads. The commander and 2 officers, along with 2 base Air Force scientists, arrive and wait apprehensively. A panel slides open on the side of the craft. Stepping forward, 1, then 2, and a third, what appear to be men dressed in tight-fitting jumpsuits. Perhaps short by our standards, with an odd blue-gray complexion, eyes set far apart, a large, pronounced nose. They wear a headpiece that resembles a rope-like design. The commander and the 2 scientists step forward to greet the visitors. Arrangements are made by some sort of communication, and the group quickly retires to an inner office in the King 1 area. Left behind stand a stunned group of military personnel. Who the visitors are, where they're from, and what they want is unknown. We now have a new challenge, perhaps the most monumental in recorded history. The opportunity to investigate a phenomenon that could change our destiny. Through the study and understanding of the UFO phenomena, we may discover a new energy force, or how to use it. Or it could lead to an understanding of our relationship to life throughout the universe. And if there are beings from distant advanced societies, we may be privileged to see a revelation, a look at ourselves 1,000 years in the future. And perhaps at this very moment, located in another galaxy, somewhere in infinite space, other beings raise similar questions and discuss the possibilities of life outside their planet, and talk about Earth as part of their plans for the near future.